What's going on, guys? Stasio here with FlytPath.com. Now, this is part 2 of the 2-part series video. If you guys haven't seen part 1, the before you fly video setup, make sure you guys check out the link above. I'll also leave it down below. I go through all the steps that I was able to take at home after you unbox it and set it all up at home. In this video, let's go through the steps I take for you to get this Mavic Mini up for your very first flight. And if you guys are new to my channel, my name is Stasio. I do a lot of drone tech tips, tutorials, and product reviews right here on this channel. So if that's something that interests you, please consider subscribing and also hitting that bell to be notified when I post new videos. And for my very first tip, don't fly this indoors for your first flight. I know they have sensors here at the bottom where it can hover indoors really well. But if this is your first time flying, I highly recommend going outside, trying to find an open area or an open park for you to fly at where there's nobody around. So tip number 1, find an open area for you to fly at. And now that we're at the field, let's get everything set up. Let's get our remote control ready as far as our device goes. Let's unfold the DJI Mavic Mini, as well as important, take off the gimbal protector before you power this on. Now, next thing you want to do is find a flat surface to take off from. Now, if you don't like to hand launch and hand catch it, a nice sidewalk will work really well, but you're going to want to find a flat surface. And if you're somewhere here, like on the grass, even a piece of cardboard works really well. I have my Flymore combo case. So what I can do is place that right on top of the case and we can launch directly off of that. Now, the one important tip here is to have your camera pointed out and away from you. You don't want to have your camera pointed towards you, and I'll talk to you about that in a second. You want to have your camera facing out and away from you. So if I'm standing this way, I'm having the camera is pointed out this way, and I'm going to stand behind here and launch it from here. Now, next thing we'll do is power everything on. What you're going to want to do first is power the remote control on first. So we'll press and hold that. We'll hear that noise. Now you can turn your DJI Mavic Mini on. Place that right there. And then we're going to start up the DJI Fly app through our device. Now, next thing you want to do is turn up the volume on the device that you're using. Because there's voice prompts inside of the app, letting you know that your home point has been set and things like that, you're going to want to be able to hear that, so turn up the volume on your device that you're using on your remote control. Now, once your volume is up, the next thing you want to do is look at the app interface, and on the very top left, there's going to be some text there. Now, mine right now says takeoff permitted, which means I'm in an area where you're able to take off. Everything is ready as far as the system goes, but there's definitely going to be some situations where you go out there and it might be a no-fly zone, it might be restricted, or you might have something like an error or a compass calibration or an IMU calibration that might be needed on your device or on your DJI Mavic Mini. So you're always going to want to look at that top left area, and you can actually click on it and it'll give you a little bit more information about it. Right now, as mine says, pre-flight check is normal. If there's any issues in there, you're going to want to address those first before you actually try to take off. Now, if you do get some of those errors, there's actually a walkthrough on how to calibrate your IMU and your compass. Normally, I would always try to calibrate my IMU and compass before I fly for the very first time. I think the systems now have gotten really advanced that, you know, especially with the Mavic Mini, it's made for beginners. Definitely, you're going to want to know how to do them, but ideally, you'll probably now just wait until the app tells you to, or if you see something kind of out of the ordinary happening with your drone, you're going to want to look into calibrating either the IMU or the compass, depending on what the app is telling you. And now that we saw that menu open, the next thing you want to change is your RTH, or return to home altitude, as well as your max distance and max height. Now, as far as return to home altitude, you're going to want to look around to see if there's anything that's really tall. There could be some power lines, lights here, as well as a backstop for the baseball field. You want to set that return to home height higher than anything around you, because if you ever had to hit return to home on your remote or on your controller, you want to be able to have the Mavic go higher than any of those obstacles. It'll then fly back at that height and then come back down safely. So I'll change my return to home about 100 feet. And I also recommend, if this is your first flight, keep your max distance and your max altitude pretty low as well. So I would keep my max altitude at something like, 200 feet, as well as my max distance, keep that pretty short too. Keep that around maybe 1,000 feet away. You want to keep those fairly close, and you can adjust it over time as you gain a little bit more experience, but I would try to keep that close just so at least you have some boundaries within the app, so you're not able to fly too high or too far away if this is your first time flying. With all those settings in there, we are ready for takeoff. There's a couple ways you can take off. You can actually do it through the app itself by pressing that icon on the left-hand side here. If I press that arrow up, it'll just say takeoff. All you have to do is press and hold and then let go, and then the Mavic Mini will then take off. Now, if you want to take off manually and you don't want to use the auto feature in the app, what you have to do is hold the sticks down and in, then the motors will start up. There you go. And to take off, all you have to do is press the left stick up and fully accelerate and let go, and then it'll maintain hover just like that. Now, when I talked to you earlier about having the camera facing away from you and having the tail pointed towards you is because of orientation. Now, by default, it's in mode 2, where the orientation as far as the sticks go, the left stick will allow you to raise up the drone and then bring it back down, and also turn the drone left to right. So it actually turns it this way and then turns it back. And then the right stick allows you to push it forward or bring it back, as well as lean left and lean right. Now, the reason why it's so important to have your camera facing away from you is because if your camera is actually pointed towards you, as it is right here, everything is now opposite. So if I press my stick left, it actually goes right. If I press it right, it goes left. Now, this is where a lot of crashes happen because of the fact that people will lose orientation, especially if they try flying it indoors. It'll get really close to a wall, and they're gonna wanna try to push the sticks away from the wall, but really, because of the fact that the drone is spun around, they're actually gonna now crash it directly into the wall. So orientation is such a big deal. So you always want to have your nose pointed out first, just to understand how the controls work. As you get better, you'll be able to, of course, maneuver a little bit better. But to start out, have everything facing that way because that's the way the default mode sticks are. Have your nose faced out and away from you. Now, one of the things I think a lot of flyers tend to overlook is the antenna positioning. Now, a lot of people will think that if I have my antennas pointed like that, right towards the drone, that I'm getting the best reception, but technically it's actually opposite. You're getting the worst reception because all of the signals are coming off the sides of the antennas. So that's one big tip I think even if some experienced flyers tend to overlook. Don't have your antennas pointed directly at the Mini like this. Have it folded up because the strongest signal is coming off of the sides. Now, if the drone is directly above your head, you can then fold these down because the sides of the antennas here are giving you the best reception up. You'll want to point it just like that, where you'll have the best reception. Now, once you're up in the air, you are up and flying, taking your very first flight. One of the things I'd recommend doing is just doing some basic maneuvers. What I like to do first is just do some basic boxes by using that right stick. Go forward, go right, come back, go left, go forward, come back, and go left again. Do some basic maneuvers like that just to understand how responsive the remote control is to the Mavic Mini. And then once you get some of those controls down, do things like figure eights where you're gonna incorporate the left stick. So you're gonna go forward, and then you're gonna come back around, turn the drone around. Now you're gonna practice your orientation here. This is where a lot of your orientation comes into play. So you're just gonna do some figure eights. Use that left stick to turn it, go forward, and really understand exactly what the drone is doing with your controls. Now, if you want to take things really slow, the one thing I recommend doing is switching your mode into cinematic mode. Now, what this does, it actually slows down all of your controls. So if I switch this on the top left and I press mode from P to S to C, now when I fly, if I press forward at full throttle, it actually won't go as fast as the position or the sport mode. Now, if I pull it back, it goes a little bit slower. Now, ideally, this setting is meant for you to go really, really slow so you can get some nice controlled cinematic movement, but it also helps a lot with beginner flyers because of the fact that everything slows down. So if in case you're starting to panic a little bit, just know that even if you're at full throttle, the drone itself won't go too fast and too high at such a fast rate that it would have been in position or in sport mode. So try cinematic mode if you are very kind of timid or scared of flying it. Keep it in cinematic mode and everything will be nice and smooth and controlled. And if you guys learned some new stuff while you guys get out there and fly, please leave that information down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you guys. How was your experience getting the Mavic Mini up in the air? And that's about it for part 2 of this series. I hope you guys got some value from this video. If you did, a big thumbs up would be much appreciated. And also don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to be notified when I post new videos. This is Ultra Anastasio with FlytPath.com. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a safe first flight, everyone.